Hey, good afternoon. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to do a little leather repair work. I'm going to show you this. I have a vintage leather jacket here that is pretty nice. Fits me like a glove. You'll see the seams are coming apart here and here. You could see where I did some repair before. See the thread hanging there where I sewed the cuffs up by hand. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to take something that you normally would throw away. Oh, there's another repair I made. You normally throw this away or give it away or send it to the thrift shop, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to make this repair. So, let's see. Set the camera up so I can use my hands. Okay. So what we're going to do is you open the coat up. And what you do, you pick the area where you want to work. Okay, we're going to work on this sleeve here. So what we do is we open it up, turn the old sleeve right inside out. Grab it at the cuff and pull it inside out. Now you've got the liner exposed, okay? Chances are if the seams are coming apart, there's probably a small spot in the liner where here's some edging that's coming off. That's minimal damage, but I can repair that later. So where I went in is right here at the shoulder. Here's my old stitching from when I repaired it before. I've cut that out so that I can expose this inner leather. Now all you need to do is open this up just enough to get your hand in there and pull that sleeve inside. Pull it from out of that liner gently so you don't tear anything. Now this liner here is pretty durable, but some of these liners are like a satin or polyester and it can be very difficult to sew. So you want to look at the liner before you start doing the work, if it's a liner that you can salvage, or you can put a whole new liner in it. Okay, now I've got the sleeve exposed. Here's the hole right here. It's old stitching coming apart. So what you do is you start right here about an inch up from where the stitching is opened. Go up at least an inch and run the needle through, right through the same old holes as best you can. The needle should slide right through it. Make sure you use a thimble or a piece of hard leather to push the needle in, but just go right through them same old holes. And you can use a double loop stitch. I like to double stitch it. You can, if you single stitch it, it'll throw it together for cosmetics, but if you take your time and put a good stitch in it, it'll hold for a long time. And do the same thing when you get down to the end where the hole ends. Continue on past it a good inch. And then once you've made that sewing repair, you take the sleeve, you tuck it back inside the liner, you reach in the sleeve hole from outside the jacket and gently worm your hand in there and find that cuff. Find the cuff and then pull it out just like that. So there's the sleeve again. Now the liner's back inside the coat where it's supposed to be. Now what you do is you do the same thing you were going to do for the leather. You go back. You want to take that loose stitching out. Take the loose stitch all the way back. or you can cut it off after you've sewn it up. But I like to get all that garbage out of there. So leave the string long for a minute. Run your stitching back. Same thing. Start an inch in. Make sure you secure your stitching with some good stitch knots, and then fold the raw end inside. And again, try and run your needle and string right through pretty much the same old holes. And what you do is, to hold this together, you take some safety pins or straight pins and you pin it together to hold it into place so that you can run that needle in. And you only need a couple of them. So, you know, you sew up there. It really doesn't take that long. And again, once you get up to where the hole ends, where the space is closed up, you want to run it past a good inch. I like to go a good inch. Alright, this jacket, I bought at a yard sale for $5. That's my favorite jacket. And if you can run a needle and some thread, you can keep a good jacket alive. I get a lot of compliments on this coat. It's a nice coat. It's one of my favorites. So hopefully this was a good lesson for you. Maybe you'll be able to salvage some things that are pretty important to you, or maybe some sentimental value. Maybe not. Maybe it's just a hunk of crap and it looks decent. It doesn't matter. It's all clothing. It's insequential. It's the individual that's important. This is brought to you by Prospect Studio and myself, Zachary Polk. Have a good day. Seaming, some rotted threads. It's an old jacket. That's what happens, is the threads dry out and rot, especially if it gets wet. It's pretty easy to find the old holes. You just take your time and guide that needle through them old holes. You don't have to shove so hard. But make sure you pull your thread through evenly. Sometimes one side will pull through more than the other, so you gotta yank them one at a time. After you get a few threads going, then you do a lock knot. Make sure the last stitch you did was pulled tight before you pull this second one, or this next one. Okay, now we're going to go back. We're going to go back and we're going to go under the thread we just did. We're going to go back through the same hole we just went through, and we double stitch it there to lock it into place. Now you gotta want to do this in order to do it. It takes some time and some meticulous attitude. But like I say, you gotta want to do it, or have the money to pay somebody else. But something satisfying about doing it yourself. It means a little bit more. Doesn't matter what color thread you use. I don't give a crap what color. I'd rather have the brown, but I don't have the brown, so I'll use this blue because it's a heavy thread. It's not your basic thread. It's a heavier thread, and that's what you want for leather. You want a heavier thread. You don't want some fine thread they use for sewing t-shirts or something. I paid $5 for this jacket, and I bought it at a yard sale back 10 years ago, and everywhere I go with this jacket I get compliments. So now I went through and I double stitched it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do a lock knot, what I call a lock knot. I take the needle, go under the thread, and then back over like that, and it makes a knot. And if you carefully pull it, you're secure. And that helps lock them threads in, and you can continue on stitching. And if you just do one of those like every inch, it's better. So sometimes the hole's hard to find on the suede side, but if you flip it over and you look, you can see where the thread went, and you can get it back in there. If you don't, it'll throw off the seam and it'll make it all criggly, wiggly, crooked, and buckly, and it'll look like crap. You don't want it to look like crap. You want it to look repaired. And if you pull these seams tight enough, if you do these tight enough, you won't see the blue thread. And if you do, you will see very little of it. It's a piece of cake, really. You just have to want to do it. And there's the hole. I'm going to do another lock knot. Here we go. Under, over, under, through. And then gently tease that knot down to where you want it. Okay. I'm going to go back through that last stitch hole. Make sure, see how the thread looped up there? Sometimes you have to come back through, pull it loose, and then one at a time, separate the thread from your needle, pull the one, pull the other, look at it, make sure your thread's pulled through. Otherwise what will happen is that extra string will work its way out of there and make that seam come apart, make it weak. You want it to be tight seam. It's a leather jacket. The wind's not supposed to blow through the seams. It's my favorite leather jacket. It fits me like a glove. So I'm anxious to have it fixed. And doing it myself is just that much more satisfying. It's nice to know how to do things, so you don't have to ask anybody to do anything for you. And you become valuable that way. So here we go. We're going to go in, just like that. Back through and do another lock knot, double stitch here. I'm not a professional seamster, but I do know how to sew a little bit. We're almost there. I had to take home ec when I was in school, home economics, where they teach you how to use the kitchen, and they teach you a few basic home skills such as sewing. It's not a girl's thing. It's not girl work. It's people work. Who do you think the pioneers? You think the pioneers had some chick in their cabin stitching up their bearskin coat? No. Where do you think the fringes come from on those leather jackets? The fringes that hang that everybody likes so much? That was stitching originally. Those fringes were ties. What that was originally is where they tied the sheets of leather together to make the garment. They didn't have a sewing machine, so they cut strips out of the leather on the edges and they tied it together. That's what the fringes are all about. If you ever see an authentic handmade leather pioneer's coat, you'll see what I mean. They're not necessarily sewn with thread. They're sewn up with knots. A lot of people don't know that. But that's okay, because we know it, don't we? I'm going to do another back lock here. Another lock knot. What I call a lock knot. I'm sure it's probably got a different name, but today it's what I call it. So when we want to run past the opening, now you can see I've got it all sewn up here. So I want to keep going a little farther because I want my stitching to lap a good, at least a ½ inch. I like to go an inch because the stitching was coming apart. So if the stitching was coming apart here and the hole was like this and you only went up to the edge of the hole, you got loose stitching here from the bottom down from the old stitching that's going to come apart. So you want to lap your stitches from the end of your hole back into the good where the threads are good. You want to lap into there a good distance. I like to go ½ inch to an inch, and that keeps that ensures that it's not going to start coming unraveled again. I like to do things right, or I like to go through the motions that make me feel like I'm doing it good enough. So if I don't know what right is, I keep going until I'm happy. And how could I be unhappy when I'm fixing my favorite jacket? You can use the leather to push that needle through if you don't have a thimble or a needle pad on your hand. I don't work with a needle pad because I have pretty strong grip. I can usually poke right through, see. That's a fresh hole I just made. You got to really pinch it hard to grab that needle, and that's how come the needle ends up bent from pulling it, pinching it and pulling it. But it's okay because the needle works just fine with a bend in it. Sometimes it's a little bit better. Okay, I think I'm far enough to where I'm pretty happy about that. So I'm going to go back under this last stitch. Go back under the stitch. Do my lock knot. And then we're going to do another one, a double knot, so that this doesn't come apart. Loop, loop, wait, let me do it again. Loop, loop, pull, Just like that. Okay. So, oh, that's a sharp knife. It's a Western Buckmaster's rubber handle with the knuckle grips. It's hard to use this and have your hand slip on it. There's no way your hand can slip when it locks in them knuckles. And you don't want to be running around with a knife like that either, because you're going to fall on it. That's why you should run with the knife down, because you can always go. Anyway, that's that stitch. Okay, so that's 3 repairs we made. Now notice I'm going through the liner here. This is the first hole I made to get to that first sleeve, which I already did. Now that's the second sleeve. Let's pull it back through. Pull it back through. You got to be gentle because you don't want to tear the liner. And just reach your hand right inside there, grab that cuff, and just pull it out, just like that. Okay, so let's see what we did. We just repaired it right here. This was our repair right here. And you could see it's nice. Let's see the other side. The other side's nice too. Okay, now what do we got here? We've got okay, that sleeve's done. This is good here. This is good through here. I sewed this up yesterday. Looks like the last spot I got is right here. So, again, I'm going to go back to our original hole in the liner. I'm going to gently come over to where this is here. We're going to grab this part right here from inside. Grab it and then pull it gently. Through the hole. Now that gives you, this is minimally invasive what I'm doing here. I suggest you do the same. It's a lot easier, it's a lot less work. Okay, now we've got our area exposed here. Let's cut some of these loose threads out of the way. Now you can see this is a loose thread here. When I talk about the coat unraveling, that's why you don't start right where the separation is. You want to go beyond it a good little bit of ways. I like to go an inch, ½ inch minimum. So that's about, let's see, 4 inches, 5 inches, 6 inches. That means 12 inches of thread, 18. So a chunk of thread about 2 foot long. So we're gonna go about 2 foot. And the thing about cutting the thread versus biting it is it's a lot easier to get it through the needle because there's not so much of a fray at the end. You need a nice clean cut so that you can push that through, just like that. A nice clean cut pushes right through. Otherwise you fight with it. You don't want to fight with it. Sewing is a nice leisurely thing. It's not hard work. You don't need to break a sweat. You don't need to jump up and down and cuss and throw things. I mean, unless you like to do that because you're a drama queen. which, yeah, everybody's got a little drama queen in them. Okay, so there's my chunk of thread. That should be enough to do that. Let's find out. See how close I am. If you end up short on the thread, the best thing to do is to just finish it off. Don't sew until you have such a short chunk of thread on your needle that you can't tie a knot. You want to make sure you got that knot tied. You can end it and then restart with another piece of thread. It's not that big a deal. So here's the hole. We're going to start at the bottom. See how it's coming apart back into the elastic here. So we're going to go back in right about there. Well, I'm going to go a little farther back. I'm going to go right there. And again, find that old hole. Yep, just like that. And back through. You know, here's the tricky part is that you got to pay attention to where the elastic is and where the seam actually is, because you can see that the elastic is sewn about 1/8 or 1/4 inch outside of that seam. So you're going to take that into consideration where you're placing that. It's the one thing you want to make sure you're placing it right. So you find the next hole. Sometimes it's easiest to open it up, but here you can't do it because you got that elastic. So here we go. There she is. Come on, baby. I think I might have cut it kind of close on my thread here, but we'll see. We'll see. Done a lot of sewing in the last couple of years. First thing I started sewing was my my promo bag. I call it a promo bag. It's a Carhartt bag that my friend Danny had. He used to carry tools and stuff in. I use it for promotion when I go out to bars and nightclubs promoting the music from the Bandana Brothers and Prospect Studio. That's the first thing I sewed because it was coming apart, had some tears in it, so I sewed it up and made it good. Now, I'm going to lock this thread. Just like that. The second thing I sewed since I've been with Jenny is my outdoor gear, my Carhartts. Carhartts are about 25, 30 years old. They were all tattered. And I sewed patches all over them. Denim patches, blue jeans. And I still use them to this day. 25, 30 years old. I'll show you a picture of them here. When you're doing patchwork, it doesn't have to be beautiful. It doesn't have to be beautiful patchwork. It just has to serve the purpose. If it's a work jacket or whatever, you're not sewing the thing up to impress anybody. You're sewing it up because you need it. And it don't make sense to throw something away and spend $200 on something. Yeah, everybody'd like to have a fresh pair of Carhartts, but for $3 and a little time when you're sitting on your ass watching TV at night, you could be sewing patches. And that's what I did. And I sewed them right up. Of course, I get some weird looks out of people sometimes. I'm going to make a fresh hole here because I want to cinch that seam together with another knot, and I want to do it with a fresh hole. Now I go back under my last stitch, double loop on my knot. There, you see that? See how that works? You want to make sure you double check each side, make sure they're pulled through, because a loose thread will start to make your new seam pull apart. You don't want it to pull apart. Every time you repair it, may not be perfect, but it ain't supposed to be. That's what gives it character. This jacket's going to tell a story someday, and it'll have a lot to say, I'm sure. Everywhere I go, when I'm wearing this coat, people compliment me on it. It's a vintage jacket. Can't believe I only paid $5 for it. I don't know what brand it is. I know it's a size 40. It's a little snug on me, but it makes me look a little bit bigger with a smaller type of coat on than a larger type of coat. It's kind of like stripes and the color black. Black's not very forgiving for the camera. But it's okay. Now, did I get that hole? Where am I? Almost there. Almost there. It didn't take very long. Don't be scared of putting a needle into something. It's not going to turn you into a faggot. Don't be afraid. You cook. You know, you gotta stop looking at things with a sexist attitude. That's girls' work, that's boys' work, that's, well, to a certain extent, there is some of that, but when it comes to doing stuff around the house, sometimes you gotta put the fucking apron on. And if you don't, well, maybe you ought to find a different house. Everything you know how to do is like money in the bank. Let's see how close we are to closing her up. Oh, we're getting close there.
Hey, Zach, thanks for fixing me. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, we're closing in. I got 4 inches of string left. Let's see how close I got with my guesstimation on how much thread I needed. It's going to be close. When you get them holes, they should fall right into place. But if they don't, you can easily prod around and find it. And if you get tired of looking, you can always make a fresh stitch hole if you got strong enough fingers. Now, I don't know. This stitch up job might last a year, 5 years, 20 years. It depends on how much roughhousing I do in this jacket. Which usually I just sit around and I just stay sitting and look pretty. Unless I'm doing the old karaoke. Then I spring to life, spring into action. Okay, I think I'm going to lock her up right here. Yeah, it's a good place. Good place to lock her up right here. Okay, let's see if I can do a... See, here's the problem when you get too close to the end. That's why I say you can always stop short and then get some more string. But I'm gonna do the old, just enough room to do a knot there. And we loop back under. Do another knot. Just enough. Oh, is that like a magic man or what? Razor sharp knife now. Oh, God, you don't even have to push on it. You just touch it and that cuts. Okay, there's my special needle. I love that needle. Okay, let's examine our work here. This is a shoulder piece, the shoulder blade, a little expansion there, sewn right up nice. Okay, then you want to go around, cut off your loose, trim your threads anywhere that are hanging out of the coat. Helps clean it up a little bit. Looks a little nicer. Alright, I think we're we're closing in on it, that's for sure. So once I get her to where I'm happy, then I just take this here and sew it back up. Just fold it inside, back where the original folds are, and just start stitching it up. Doesn't have to be pretty. Doesn't have to be pretty at all. Loose threads, and make sure you gather them up and tie them off. This was the original string that I repaired it with. You can see it's a light brown, a light tan, but just roughhousing in this coat, getting a little rough with it. Okay. All right. That's it for doing a little leather repair work. We had a couple little more details to do on this. We had a couple repairs to make, but that's the gist of it. Hopefully this was informative for you. And hopefully you can find something that you love in the closet that needs a little repair and give it a little love. That's all your stuff needs, just give it a little love. This is brought to you by Prospect Studio and Someone Unlimited. My name's Zachary. I'll see you next time.